Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I am Tina Jha. Welcome to this special broadcast on the occasion of World Water Day. We all know water is life. It is at the core of sustainable development, critical for socio-economic development, energy and food production, health ecosystem, and most importantly for human survival itself. But despite it being an essential element of life, billions of people around the world lack adequate access to water. Now, as per the WHO UNICEF data 2021, 1 in 4 people, which is about 2 billion people worldwide, lack access to safe drinking water. Almost half of the global population, which is around 4.2 billion, lack safe sanitation. Although governments and aid groups have helped many living in water-stressed regions gain access in recent years, the problem is projected to get worse due to population growth and global warming. In 2015, the world committed to Sustainable Development Goals as part of the 2030 Agenda, under which SDG 6 is about ensuring availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. Now, in achieving that, we are currently off track. The United Nations says governments must work on an average 4 times faster to meet the SDG 6 on time. So it's this call for action, for larger commitments from governments worldwide, and promises from individuals and communities towards sustainable use of water that World Water Day 2023 is putting the spotlight on, the need to accelerate change to solve the water and sanitation crisis worldwide. To talk about how severe the water crisis is in India and what we are doing to tackle it, I have with me an illustrious panel. So let me begin the program by introducing the guest to you. Next to me is Mr. Abhinash Mishra, his advisor, Water and Land Niti Ayog. Ms. Jyoti Sharma, she's President FORCE. It's an NGO that works towards creating a water-secure society. Dr. Soumitra Mukherjee, Professor, Geology and Remote Sensing, School of Environmental Sciences, Jawaharlal Nehru University. And Mr. Abhinash Mohanty, Sector Head, Climate Change and Sustainability, IPE Global. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this special broadcast today. And besides all our guests who are joining us on the program, I also have with me a group of young students who will engage with us in this conversation, in this special program that we are talking about on an issue that concerns all of us. So what you and I can do to ensure water security in a country like ours is something that we will begin talking about on the program today. Mr. Mishra, let me begin the program today with you. Water, we all know, is an essential resource, but at the same time, the most stressed resource also that we can say. In a country like India, which has now almost 18% of the population, but access to just about 4% of the water resources, how grave is the water problem and how are we tackling with this crisis?
You see, the problem is very grave. The reason being because the type of the population what we have got and all the development which is to happen, we need water. And water is, generally we feel like that it is abundantly available. It is not the fact. The per capita water availability, if we compare India vis-a-vis the other countries, including our neighbor China, US and UK, perhaps the per capita availability is very low in India. And except this, we are the first time water user. Means we use the water and then thereafter it goes to the waste. We don't reuse the water. We don't recycle the water. So we are the first time water user. In such a situation, we are consuming the water, that also disproportionately. And after that consumption of water, we allow it to go, let it go, which is going and polluting the groundwater, polluting the streams, channels, and the water tanks and traditional water bodies. So this is the situation. I think the whole system, there is a need of the sensitization, there is a need of awareness, and also there should be a proper price tag with the water, which is not there in India. Despite of that, we have progressed well. We have already provided the sanitation coverage to all the population by 2019, and by the piped water supply again to all household will be provided by 2024. By now, while I am speaking to you, 53% houses of this country have been provided the piped water supply.
Before we proceed, I came across a Niti Aayog report of 2018 which said India currently is suffering from its worst crisis in history. Almost 600 million people are water deprived. So over the last 5 years or so, what have we done to ensure water security for this increasing population?
You will find that lot of efforts have been there after this, because you see this sort of the indication what has been there in the composite water management index report of the Niti Aayog. It was also indicated that if business as usual continued. So you will find that business as usual is not continuing. So for our investment, even in this 5-year plan for the water sector and sanitation coverage, it is something like 10 lakh crore. It is quite a big sum what we are going to invest. And also the situation what has been indicated in that report, that seeing the basins, the river basins, so 12 river basins of our country are still in such a situation, those are water stressed, means the population living is much more, and the water availability in those river basin is less. So compared to that, that particular statement has been made. And again, the same thing as I told you, that if we remain the single water user, then it will be a problem. If we remain, if we continue to use around 90% to 91% water for agriculture purposes, definitely we are not going to have more water for the growth of our urbanization, more water for the growth of our industry. So there is a need to develop the rationalization, and quite a lot of efforts already initiated in that direction.
So we'll keep talking about the progress of these schemes that the government has launched, what kind of response have we seen in both urban and rural locale in the country. But before that, Mr. Mohanty, there's an important point that he spoke about, water use efficiency. That's a huge challenge that we are dealing with, and that somewhere relates to the theme this year, that there is a need to change globally and not just India, the way we use, manage and conserve water. How can that happen in the times to come? Because it's an urgent call to action.
Well, thank you so much. Given the theme is accelerating change, I would rather put it in a different way. Accelerating change in an era of changing climate, right? The big elephant in the room is actually climate change. And let's not forget, whatever steps we are going to take, whatever our developmental trajectories are, they're going to be disrupted, they're going to ravage lives and livelihood by the larger extent. Coming back to the water use efficiency, any efficiency is actually, and in layman's term, it is actually a sum of input upon output multiplied by 100. So here, what Mr. Mishra is trying to bring about is our input is kind of constant because we have only, say, the delta, and that delta has to be used by different sectors. Whereas our output is kind of 5x, 10x, because we are a growing population. B, we are an urban, aspirationally urbanized population, because all of us, we want to stay in urban hamlets, and there where the water efficiency comes down. One of the very small examples would be if we flush out our, in every single push of flush button that we use, we actually drain out almost 40 liters of water. And in a conserved way, we kind of drain out 20 liters. So 20 liters is basically a bucket of water by which you can clean your car, you can plant all your plants in a garden, and even you can mop your whole house if it is kind of a two-bedded room. And 20 liters is something that a jar of water, normally a household in an urban slum demands. That's the water demand. So here is the equation, if you have to put it together. The water use efficiency needs to be looked at from the input and output side. And in order to do that, we'll have to map what are the sectoral demands. And that's where the concept of hard water footprint and virtual water footprint needs to be understood. Because boiling 1 kilogram of rice might be we will require 5 liters of water, but that rice, when it comes to your plate, actually consumes 50 odd liters of water. Those are the equations we need to understand, and once we connect the dots in that way, our water efficiency is going to increase, because we are going to have solutions at the source side. We are not going to have solutions at the output side or at the kind of discharge side, because now our techniques and terms that whatever we are using, we are trying to recycle the waste water. Let's try to optimize our resources right at the source. That's where cradle to grave kind of concept or the whole life cycle approach for a project or for a product needs to be looked at. And water is not a free product. It has its stories. It has its stories that connects generations and connects cultures. And more importantly, it connects our developmental trajectories. And on top of it, water is also the solution that can solve the climate change problem to a larger extent.
Right. So when we were growing up, we wouldn't have said water is not for free, but of course now we can. Ms. Sharma, to ensure water security, and you've been working in this area, the need is perhaps what he says implies that we need to go back to the traditional methods. So in terms of keeping our body healthy, we are going back to the millets, which the government is also propagating. We are celebrating 2023 as the International Year of Millets. When it comes to water security, do we need to go back to the traditional methods of water conservation, water management? Perhaps that is something that we've drifted away from, and that is where the crisis has now hit us?
I wouldn't exactly frame it that way. What I would say is what we need to go back to is the traditional wisdom of water management, which means that our forefathers kept demand and supply in mind when they were planning their water consumption. And that is what we need to go back to. Now, whether we go back to that using the technologies of our forefathers or the latest technologies is actually a choice we can make. I would rather say what we need to do is adopt the wisdom of our forefathers using appropriate technologies so that we can aim towards a Gandhian model of self-sufficiency. So let every unit, if it's a village, let the village plan to be water secure. If it's a locality, let the locality plan to be water secure, which means that it calculates how much water it has, how much water God gives it, supplements it by maybe recycling water, reusing water, so that there is some kind of a demand-supply equilibrium that is established. So yeah, and for that, whatever technology is needed, whether it's the latest technology or an age-old technology, that should not be a bar.
Okay, Dr. Mukherjee, having heard the three panelists, there are two questions that I would like to pose to you. One relates to climate change, and this is one area that you've been working on. Climate change is mainly attributed to, man-made changes that perhaps we shifted to a lot of these unhealthier means which led to environmental degradation. Perhaps now what we are seeing over the last few years is extreme weather events have impacted us in more ways than one. Perhaps the increase, if I'm not wrong, Mr. Mohanty, there have been over 200% increase in extreme weather events, something that India is also bearing the brunt of. The question is, the impact of climate change in exacerbating the water crisis that we are dealing with. And the second aspect that she mentioned in terms of technological interventions to now address the problem of water security.
You see, if you see the water sector, so we need to understand the water in total, means surface water, groundwater, as well as atmospheric water. And not only the climate change has some impact on the water resources, but there are a larger impact on the earth change, because the earth is holding the water, whether it is the surface water or the groundwater. And if you just see the map of Delhi, and you will find that it appears that the Yamuna river is getting pushed towards the northeast direction, as well as the Haryana area, Gurgaon and Faridabad area is getting pushed towards the western direction. That means there is, and Delhi ridge is in between. So the thing is that it influences our water resources a lot, because since I am associated with the Namami Gange program from its inception, as well as various other planning of the Government of India. So the thing is that based on the satellite remote sensing which we studied, that terrestrial satellite remote sensing, first of all I will tell, then I will discuss with you about the extraterrestrial remote sensing. So by using the terrestrial satellite which is available not only in our country but across the world, there are approximately 3,000 satellites are operating, and continuously we are monitoring not only our different other agricultural resources, then other mineral resources, but we are capable of monitoring the water resources as well. And we can see that there are some changes which are taking place in the river. The rivers are shifting. Most of the Indian rivers, they are shifting towards the northeast direction due to the plate tectonics. And even that Indian subcontinent is getting merged into the China plate, at a rate of 5 to 6 centimeters per year. So the thing is that it influences not only our surface water, it influences our glaciers also, because the glaciers, they when melt, they are repository for the surface water. At the same time, when you see the aquifers sometimes they are feeding the groundwater, and sometimes the groundwater is getting fed by the surface water. So the net crux of the point is that everything is needed to understand in a pivotal point, and that pivotal study by the best available scientific resources which is available in our country, and I am very happy to say that Government of India is doing very proactive action on that direction. Even with Indian Space Research Organization as well as Geological Survey of India, together they have done a very big project with monitoring the change of the land, and not only the water resources but the land use is needed to understand. Just I heard about your discussion about the millet. So the thing is that not only millet, we need to understand the soil and its productivity, and its as he also, my another colleague, he also told about the rice, story of the rice, how for the development of the rice, how much water we need. We definitely need more water. But if you see that there are places in India where the rice was not grown earlier, but now the rice is being grown, like Haryana and Punjab. In Uttar Pradesh also, in Bundelkhand area, I worked a lot in that area, water-starved area, where I have seen that in Bundelkhand area, there is a place which is known as Atarra, and the rice is being grown there also, whether it is water-starved. So the thing is that we need to change our habits. Number one, as you said, that Gandhian philosophy, that we have sufficient water for all of us, but its management is required. For example, nowadays you can see there are lots of rainfall. It is unseasonal. Will come in the next facet of the climate change influence, the water resources. But for the time being, let us think about the planning. So if you are doing the rainwater harvesting throughout the year, there are 2 to 3 water cycles are there. So then it can do the miracle. I am sharing with the students as well as you experts also a very positive story of our university. I joined our university, Jawaharlal Nehru University, in 1992 after working in Ministry of Water Resources as a scientist, hydrogeologist, as well as in UP Remote Sensing Application Center as a remote sensing scientist. When I joined there, I found that area is water starved completely. The water, they used to do the rationing of the water. Then we did the rainwater harvesting, and in that the students, they played a very big role. I took the help of the students for resistivity survey, for magnetic survey. Even for several years, I used them for cleaning the reservoirs also. In the World Environment Day and Water Resources Day, they used to clean the reservoir. 3 check dams are there.
You spoke about water-starved area. I'll take that challenge to Mr. Mishra to understand how there is unequitable distribution also of in terms of water accessibility, and how we are dealing with that problem particularly in just a moment, in the next round perhaps. But since you spoke about the positive change and youngsters particularly can bring about that change, let me hear from our youngsters if you have any questions related to the issues and challenges that we are facing in terms of ensuring water security. Feel free to ask. Anyone? Yes.
सर माय क्वेश्चन इज़ डैट कि मैं जिस एरिया से आता हूँ वो वाराणसी एरिया है जो उत्तर प्रदेश में आता है. तो सर उस एरिया की एक चीज़ जो मैंने देखी है कि नमामि गंगे के नाम पर एक बहुत बड़ा प्रोजेक्ट चालू किया गया था 2014 में. और सर उस प्रोजेक्ट में ये था कि गंगा में जो कि शहर का पूरा गंदा पानी जाता था, तो उस पर काम करने का और उस वाटर को प्योरीफाई करने का काम उस पर शुरू हुआ. पर सर मेरा ये कहना है कि जो पानी है वो पानी सर प्योरीफाई किसी हद तक सर जो मतलब जो ये स्कीम चला था वो सक्सेस भी नहीं हो पाया. और क्योंकि उसके वजह सर जो नेचुरल वाटर है गंगा का, तो उससे वो जो दूषित पानी है शहर का, गंगा से सटा हुआ जितना भी जिले टच करते हैं, तो वो सर दूषित पानी आज भी उसमें जाता है. तो जो गंदा पानी है वो भी प्योरीफाई नहीं हो पा रहा है. और जो नेचुरल वाटर मिल रहा है, जिससे कि कई करोड़ परिवार की सिंचाई की व्यवस्था हो, चाहे नॉर्मल जीवन यापन की व्यवस्था हो, जिससे गंगा पे डिपेंड है, वो भी उससे प्रभावित हो रही है। तो सर इस पर क्या मतलब होना चाहिए?
Okay, I'll take that question to Dr. Mukherjee in just a bit, but any more questions? Very quickly, crisp questions, 2, 3, and we'll then come back to the guests.
Hello, myself Anshika from Gyms Noida. Actually, nowadays technology upgradation इतना ज़्यादा सर हो रहा है. So सेव मतलब टेक्नोलॉजी क्या वो करेगी कि सेव हो वाटर, या जो वेस्टेज हो रहा है टेक्नोलॉजी अपना रोल कहाँ प्ले कर रही है, क्योंकि नाउअडेज डेली लाइफ में टेक्नोलॉजी इतना अपना प्ले कर रही है रोल, तो सेव वाटर में या वेस्टेज ऑफ वाटर में वो अपना रोल कहाँ प्ले करेगी?
I'll take that question to you, Mr. Mohanty, but before that, Dr. Mukherjee, the question that he spoke about, it's a problem that pertains globally. In fact, when I was reading the UN data, it says about 80% of the water finds itself into the main water ecosystems without being actually treated, and that is further
Absolutely.
damaging the limited resource that we have. And that is something that is true for India also. So when we say we need to save water, we need to conserve water, we need to make optimum utilization of what we have, what is the best way forward? How are we dealing with it?
आपने जो सवाल पूछा, आपका शुभ नाम क्या है? हाँ, तो द्विवेदी जी, मैं भी उसी शहर से आता हूँ जहाँ से आप बिलोंग करते हो. मैं भी बनास का रहने वाला हूँ. तो मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ कि हम लोग जब छोटे थे, जब नाव की सैर करते थे, तो वहाँ पर जो गंगा जी का पानी, हम लोग जो है एक बांस लगी रहती थी, उससे हम लोग चना फरवी वगैरह खा करके चुल्लू करके पानी पी लेते थे. जय श्री राम, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. लेकिन आज के डेट में आप उस पानी से आप शायद मुंह धो भी नहीं सकते हैं. तो कारण ये जो आप बता रहे हैं वो सही है कि जितने भी प्रदूषित जल वो नदी में छोड़ने से पहले हमें एक बार नहीं 1000 बार सोचनी चाहिए. मैं आपको अपना एक एक्सपीरियंस आपसे साझा करना चाहता हूँ. वर्ल्ड वाटर फोरम में मैं कन्वेनर था, इंडिया की तरफ से जापान गया हुआ था. तो वहाँ पर एक नदी हमने देखा जो पहाड़ी नदी थी. उस पहाड़ी नदी के दोनों किनारे घनी बस्ती थी. तो जापान की पॉपुलेशन आपको पता होगा कि इंडिया के पॉपुलेशन से भी घनी है कई जगहों पर. दोनों तरफ जो है वो पानी अपने काम में इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं, लेकिन वहाँ उस पानी को उस नदी में वापस छोड़ने से पहले वहाँ संयंत्र लगा हुआ है, डिवाइस, फिल्टरिंग डिवाइस. वो उस फिल्टरिंग डिवाइस से उस यूज्ड पानी को फिर से दोबारा परिशोधित करके फिर से उसी नदी में छोड़ा जा रहा है. और जो लेक बीवा, जो वहाँ पर उसका जो रिपोजिटरी है लेक बीवा, उस लेक बीवा का पानी हमने देखा, उसका बायोलॉजिकल ऑक्सीजन डिमांड परफेक्ट. तो इसका मतलब यह है कि हमारे देश में भी जो आपसे जो है ये नीति आयोग के भी ये बैठे हुए हैं हमारे साथ अविनाश जी, तो उनसे भी मैं आग्रह करना चाहूँगा कि इसमें थोड़ी सी जो है ये हमारे जो यंग जनरेशन उनके सुझाव भी लिया जाए कि जहाँ तक हो सके, चाहे वो नमामि गंगे का प्रोग्राम हो, चाहे किसी भी जो बहने वाली पानी का प्रोग्राम हो जिसको हम इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं, सबसे पहले जो कल कारखानों से जो पानी निकलती है उसको परिशोधित करके फिर उसको नदी में छोड़ा जाए. उसके बाद बाकी हम जो है सौंदर्यीकरण या बाकी जो चीज़ हम चाहें तो वो कर सकते हैं, उसमें कोई दिक्कत नहीं है.
जी जी.
भारत के जो एनवायरमेंटल प्रोटेक्शन नियम हैं वो विश्व के सबसे अच्छे नियमों में से एक हैं. दे आर वेरी वेल फ्रेम्ड एंड दे आर वेरी वेल रिटन. पर ग्राउंड रियलिटी तो वो नहीं है. तो चूंकि यहाँ पर सब यंग लोग बैठे हैं और मैं भी बहुत यंग लोगों के साथ एक यूथ फॉर वाटर प्लस नाम के प्रोग्राम में जुड़कर काम करती हूँ, तो उस नाते मैं आपसे कहूँगी, हर वो इंडस्ट्री जो लगती है नियमानुसार उसे अपने गंदे पानी को ट्रीट करके ही छोड़ना है. क्या ऐसा होता है? और अगर नहीं होता तो क्या आपने कभी जाकर, आपने कभी जाकर किसी अपने इंडस्ट्रियल एरिया में जाकर क्या इंडस्ट्री के लोगों से जाके पूछा कि ऐसा हो रहा है? तो एक हमारा रोल एज अ सिटीज़न, अगर हम ऐसी फैमिली को बिलोंग करते हैं जो एक फैक्ट्री रन करते हैं, तो हमारी पर्सनल जिम्मेवारी हो जाए कि हम अपने यहाँ ऐसा ना करें. पर एज यंग पीपल आप बिल्कुल ये कर सकते हैं कि आप इस बारे में थोड़ी आवाज़ उठाएं और आप देश की इंडस्ट्री चलाने वालों से आप ये कहें कि भाई हमें आपकी नौकरी की ज़रूरत है, पर इस कॉस्ट पे नहीं कि आज से कल को हम दूषित पानी से ख़त्म हो जाएं.
Development should never be at the cost of environment. That is something that we have become extremely conscious of, Mr. Mishra. But very important points that
No,
are
no,
being
actually,
discussed. And to pollution, I also wanted to add the challenge of unequal distribution. Because when we talk about socio-economic development, we are witnessing a very interesting phase of transformation. We are talking about becoming a 5 trillion economy. Do we want to become a country wherein still a significant population in 2050 will be deprived of this basic human right? So both challenges, pollution and unequal distribution.
Just to respond first of their question,
Yes.
there are the STPs, means no one can release the water directly to any water body. So it passes through either STP or it passes through ETP, effluent treatment plant, what the industries are supposed to keep it. And the other thing is this, now we are going for online and real-time monitoring, which will be displayed. So what are the values of the effluent or the sewage treatment plant which they are releasing. Other than that, we are also, as I told you, we are the single user of water. We want to minimize the single user concept. We want to reuse this water. Maybe this water may be reused in the cluster of houses in a dual pipe system for our cistern and all these things. As far as the equity part is concerned, you see, the equity things, it is again, it can be, I'll just give an example. In the NDMC area of Delhi, the water which is being provided, it is around 325 liter per capita. And whereas in other areas of the South Delhi, the little distance from here, the water is 40 liter per capita per day. So this unequal distribution, this is also being addressed. In what way the transmission, distribution, pipe networks, it should be there. And again, other than this unequal distribution, it should be metered. The moment it becomes metered, it becomes priced, the things will automatically be all right. So which is not happening there. Other than this, you see the efficiency part which I said, we are using 90% water in our agriculture sector, efficiency there is 38%. We are using the water in our transmission distribution in Delhi, the efficiency, we are having the transmission loss with the name of non-revenue water or whatever, it is to the tune of 45%, 40 to 45%. Means out of 100 liter, 55 liter only reaches, 40 to 45 liter just get wasted from the somewhere in between. So this particular thing needs to be addressed. The technology part is required. The Singapore has got 8 to 10% transmission and distribution losses. Many places it has got 5% distribution losses. So those technology is still required to be given. Then you will move all across the Europe, you will not find anywhere overhead tanks because the water is being provided 24/7. Yes. The moment there is an overhead tank, there is a concept of storage, the wastage of water increases. So that is also being taken care. But everything comes with the price. Now the government can spend one time, but same thing, the water should not be free, the power should not be free, all this should be the price.
We value something for which we are paying a price, Ms. Sharma.
Obviously.
So when we talk about now the role of the individuals and the community participation, the government can invest one time. Then it's for us to bring about the change that we want to see.
Yes.
So you, as someone who's engaged with a group of youngsters in bringing about the change, what is the kind of awareness levels, the kind of response and the proactiveness that you see in the younger generation about conserving such a vital resource?
Well, I would say that over the past few years, awareness levels have certainly gone up and engagement levels have also gone up. We could do with a lot more. I feel like, so there are several roles that individuals can play. One is of course the role that we play in our own households. Switching off, closing taps, plugging leakages, वो छोटी-छोटी चीज़ें हैं जिसके बारे में हम सबको मालूम है. So I don't need to say all that. There's also another larger role, which is of being vigilant citizens, of watching. If you're walking on a road and you see a pipeline which is burst or leaking, इन्होंने जो आंकड़ा बताया of 40-45% leakage, वो leakage कहीं तो हो रही है and it is visible, but how many of us are picking up the phone and reporting, even though there are SMS numbers, there are WhatsApp numbers freely displayed. So second role we can play, and young people certainly can, because you're so media savvy and you're so phone savvy, you can certainly be the role of vigilant citizens. Third, you can play the role of innovators. there's a lot of innovation that is needed, a lot of innovation. And, I understand your need to find a good livelihood, but I feel that if you can really contribute to the nation, you can do that by innovating and coming up with good ideas to solve these problems. Like rainwater harvesting, for example, I've also done thousands of rainwater harvesting structures, and there's always a problem. And the problem is what? पानी जहाँ से चल के आ रहा है वो जगह गंदी है. So unless I create a very cost-effective filtration system, what I'm recharging to groundwater might not be the best quality. And I'm really looking to young people for those kind of innovative ideas. And finally, I'll close with this. Policy. You see, you're a democracy. India has the largest population of young people. And your political leaders will listen to you. But you don't raise your, I don't want to say protest. Protest is not needed. But just let them know that this is an issue which matters to you. That making sure that the rivers are clean matters to you. That, making sure that you get X number of liters per capita per day equitably matters to you. आप ये कहेंगे तो I'm sure कि government ने अगर अभी 10,000 crore डाले हैं for water, they will next time put 20,000 crores, which is much needed investment.
And to add to why we should all, as youngsters, be concerned, let me put across some data that I came across. From 1951 to 2050, that's the projection, from 5,177 billion cubic meters of per capita water that was accessible to citizens. By 2050, it's projected it will come down just to 1,140. So huge reasons to worry if we don't bring change in our actions. Any more questions about, she spoke a lot about participation. How can you and I ensure that we are part of that growth story and we are part of that change in terms of environment, sustainability, in terms of water conservation? Yes.
मैम मेरा नाम विधि शर्मा है. मैम मेरा सवाल है रेन वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग के लिए. मैम पहले ऐसा होता था कि हर गांव में बिल्कुल एंड के गांव के किनारों पर तालाब होती थी जहाँ पे पानी बारिश का इकट्ठा होता था. पर अब ऐसा नहीं है. अब हर जगह वहाँ पे प्लॉट बन गए हैं या फिर वो बंद कर दिया है. हर गांव में ऐसा होता था, पर अब ऐसा नहीं है.
I'll take that question to you, Dr. Mukherjee. Yes, anyone?
Okay, so I am Anam from Mumbai. मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि मुंबई में काफ़ी बीच सारे हैं, तो उस बीच में ये विसर्जन होता है, तो वो पानी प्यूरिफाई कभी नहीं हो पाता. तो उसका क्या रीज़न है और क्या ये इन फ्यूचर ये चीज़ हो सकती है? बिकॉज विसर्जन के टाइम पे यू ऑल नो कि वो कितना गंद हो जाता है वहाँ पे. इनफैक्ट हम बीच काफ़ी 1-2 महीने तक हम बीच जाते भी नहीं हैं, जस्ट बिकॉज वहाँ पे बहुत ज़्यादा डर्ट हो जाती है. तो उसका कोई सोल्यूशन होगा?
Yes, Mr. Mohanty, you want to take that?
So, first of all, leakage is something that we have been discussing about, whether it is water leakage, whether it is leakage with policies being implemented, whether it is leakage with beneficiaries being identified, right? Leakage is kind of the theme that we are talking of. So first and foremost, the first question I'll try to address about technology. Technology is an enabler. If you have to commute between your home to your college, then metro is the technology that makes you reach from point A to point B, and that's an enabler. So technology can only become an enabler, but in single-handed ways, technology is one-eyed, right? The other eye is how we use that technology, and that's where the solution comes in. Solution needs to be from 3 angles. One, systemic solution where policies doesn't look at the end use or the beneficiaries or the output side, but also at the input side of it. And that's where I think integrating or climate proofing our systemic policies by a systemic range is something that is very much required. The other thing that is required is again technology. Now technology needs to be available to citizens. It needs to be affordable. More importantly, it has to be accessible. And that's where the question of leakage comes in, and the charity begins at home. Similarly, if I have to give you an example, then the first example is about the tankers that supply water. If you go down to those hubs where these tankers have been filled in, the largest leakage happens there, right? So we need to begin that charity at home. We need to stop that leakage, right? Similarly, we are calling ourselves as the innovation hub of the world now, because climate solutions are like home to India, and it's paving the way for the world. Can't we solve this leakage problem of fixing our tankers, right? We can, but it is all about that willingness to solve that problem. More importantly, to identify that problem. And third is more about the finances. We have been talking about millions of tons of rupees which has been pumped into primarily the water sector, because we treat water as a basic necessity. And as a country, we need to address water issue from a developmental trajectory, right? So in order to understand the finances, those financials need to be blended. Those finances need an innovation as well. It can't be just government giving us, or kind of government putting a cap and trade of metering it, or industries kind of putting it out through their solutions of ETP and STPs. What is more important is there has to be this financial innovations that trigger the management of water by large.
Right.
Until now, rainwater harvesting has been most talked in the town. It is because government has been pumping in a lot of money. The moment that becomes a PPP shared, public-private or philanthropic partnership, rainwater will fall across the cracks.
I think that's something that has held us back, Mr. Mishra, over the decades. If you look at the developing, all the developed economies, research and innovation has been a shared area, wherein the private sector has joined hands with the public sector. Here in India, for several years, it's largely been public sector driven. Now, of course, during the pandemic, we've seen a lot of private sector come in, a lot of startups come in. But to make that kind of impact and to bring about this kind of transformation that we are talking about, what is the role that the private sector today is playing? How are we helping them to smoothly enter and, bring that kind of change?
You see, we have piloted one such program. As you might be listening, the lady was saying that there was the tank in her village, but that was encroached. Similarly, such 6 lakh tanks were there in the country, but majority of them have been encroached. And you see the system, if you see the overall system of civilization which has come all across the globe, it has come on the banks of the river. It is in India that with the support of the tanks, whether it is stepped tanks there in the southern India, Madhya Pradesh and many parts of the world, we have developed even in the peninsular part. So actually, some time back only, means last year only, Niti Aayog piloted one such scheme where we are putting some money, that is the government money. Then the community participation was there, and we have rejuvenated the tanks, desilting the tank. Right. So the farmers are carrying the mug which is collected over there, and the government has put their money to just desilt it, and farmers carry it and spread in their field. That adds to the fertility to the farmer's field, and the water body got created and the water got stored. We have done some such 1,000 tanks, and I believe that it has become a complete scheme. Some 71,000 crore under the Panchayat Raj system, you have kept the provision for that. So where we are going with the community participation, with the participation with the CSR. So this is going and it is happening. So now actually it has picked up. Now we are thinking to have the village water budgeting. So the budgeting of the water should be at the village level. From that, we'll grow further.
You spoke about community participation. So there are 2 programs that are being undertaken by the government. One is the Atal Bhujal Yojana and one is the Sahi Fasal campaign, both pertaining to water security.
So basically, Sahi Fasal campaign, where actually we need to really grow, means we are not supposed to grow in western UP the sugarcane, or for that matter the paddy in the Punjab and the...
But has that program seen that kind of acceptance that the government
actually
wants?
You see, it's a market-driven economy. So we are, Sahi Fasal is a program where we are actually making them aware that it's not a right thing. Our right thing would be to grow millets over there. So the type of the rainfall, the type of fasal should come. And similarly, the other scheme what we have launched, the Jal Jeevan mission. We have also launched the Prime Minister Krishi Sinchai Yojana. So these are all for all these purposes. So I think a lot of awareness is going on. Atal Bhujal is a community participation with the Panchayat intervention to see the ground, how the groundwater is behaving, because the share of the groundwater is something around 40% in our water resources, but we don't know how much groundwater we exploited and how much it is there. So we will put the piezometers to see this, how much water remains. So the community will actually budget themselves with the availability of the water. So all these campaigns we are moving, we are doing, and a lot of awareness. I think every one of us could feel within the last 5-7 years towards the water.
Certainly, and the kind
and
of
lot
outreach
more-
that the Jal Jeevan Mission has had.
and
Dr.
lot-
Mukherjee, there are 5 focused interventions that the Jal Jeevan Mission, the Jal Shakti Abhiyan talks about. 2 pertain to the area that you've been working on, rainwater harvesting and water conservation. And what particularly interests me is preparation of scientific plans for water conservation. Now, to make the common citizen aware of these plans that the government is working on, because the thrust clearly is on community participation and within this very limited time. How do we do that?
You see that the crux of the point is that we need to know where the problem is. Because again, I am going to Mr. Dwivedi, what he narrated about, and he told us very clearly about the problem. So just I would like to emphasize that we need to prepare one group of water messenger. For example, here in this youth, if you trust them and ask them, you please give the feedback as a water level messenger from someone is from Mumbai, someone is from Varanasi, someone maybe from some Odisha, some Kalahandi. So let them give us feedback that at their village or their city, what is the situation of the water, quality as well as quantity. And there will be a youth as well as water, and then youth water brigade. So we can form a youth water brigade, and because they are the trustee of the future environment, and environment includes the water resources. So if the youth brigade, we can utilize their energy, channelize their energy for as a water messenger. They will send us the ministry, Niti Aayog, Ministry of Water Resources, as well as in universities, NGOs, that this is the problem in my village. This is I am not talking only about the educated youth. I am talking about the uneducated youth, undereducated youth, unskilled, who do not have any knowledge about remote sensing satellite or any high level things. They do not, because it is a taxpayer's money, which is being used by different government organizations. So let these water messengers be given as a token incentive. If they give some some messages, just they give one message and pay them by Paytm, 100 rupees, 200 rupees. And then in that way, our youth brigade will be connected with the water resources, and it will be a miracle for the country.
That's a very interesting concept. Let me ask, how many of you are willing to become part of the youth brigade? ये जो हम अभी discuss कर रहे हैं, and you know the kind of interesting phase of development that India today is undergoing. You're all aware of the rapid transformation we've made in terms of physical infrastructure, in terms of digital infrastructure. Mobile phone हमारे पास है, दुनिया में सबसे सस्ता data हमारे पास है. तो ये जो इस तरह की expectation है हम लोगों से कि we are the drivers of that change. How many of you are willing to actually proactively do something that Dr. Mukherjee suggested? Wonderful, wonderful. So that's the kind of response, and that's the kind of onus to bring about the change that as youngsters we should be having. Any more questions if you would like? Then I'll begin the last round of questions.
सर मेरा क्वेश्चन मुंबई के जो बीचेस है तो उन पे ना विसर्जन होता है, उससे ना गंदगी फैलती है, तो नदी जो है वो ना दूषित होती है. इंडिया का जो फ्यूचर है वो टेक्नोलॉजी बेस्ड है. सो टेक्नोलॉजी इसमें क्या हाथ लगा सकती है, क्योंकि ये एक रिलीजियस वे में भी जा रहा है क्वेश्चन. तो क्या इससे रिलीजियस भी कुछ हो सकता है? क्योंकि रिलीजियस थिंग्स तो सर हट होंगी. अगर हम लोग कहते हैं कि आप लोग गंदगी ना करो, मतलब ये है कि विसर्जन भी मत करो एक तरीके से.
ठीक है.
हेलो, मेरा नाम शिल्पा कुमारी है. जैसे विधि ने बताया कि काफ़ी जगह पे तालाब होते थे, वो अब हट गए हैं कि काफ़ी घर बन गए हैं और शॉपिंग मॉल वगैरह बन गए. तो मैंने सुना है मतलब काफ़ी जगह ऐसे जहाँ तक हफ्तों तक पानी नहीं पहुँचता है, वो टैंकर मंगवाते हैं और मतलब बहुत मुश्किल से अपना गुजारा करते हैं बिना पानी के. और ऐसी एक जगह है मेरे उधर भी रजोकरी में, जहाँ पे काफ़ी सालों से पानी नहीं आ रहा. वहाँ के लोग बहुत ही ज़्यादा परेशान हैं. काफ़ी बार एमएलए के पास भी गए पर उन्होंने भी कुछ नहीं किया. मेरे को ये जानना है कि वहाँ पे इतने सालों से पानी क्यों नहीं आ रहा. थैंक यू.
I'll take the first question to you, ज्योति जी, क्योंकि आप इतने इंडिविजुअल्स के साथ काम करते हैं और तरह तरह के लोग हैं जिनकी अपनी बिलीव्स, अपने फेथ्स होते हैं. In a country like ours, religious faith, beliefs काफ़ी strong होते हैं. Difficult to tell people कि this is for the environment and you must overcome this. we need a fine balance कि religious sentiments भी hurt ना हो और at the same time environmentally sustainable भी हो. एक बहुत thin line है पर करनी तो है क्योंकि that's how it works in our country. इस तरह का कुछ experience आपका भी रहा है?
बिल्कुल. आपके अपने शहर में, दिल्ली शहर में पिछले कई सालों से घाट बनाए जा रहे हैं, स्पेशल प्लेसेस बनाए जा रहे हैं जहाँ विसर्जन करें, पर वो एक कंटेन्ड स्पेस है. वो जो उसके अंदर अगर पानी गंदा होता है तो वो उसी स्पेस में रहता है और उसको ट्रीट करके फिर फेंका जाता है, नदी में वापस बहाया जाता है. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि सिस्टम्स नहीं बने हुए, पर यह है कि उन सिस्टम्स का पालन हमें करना है. मुंबई में भी स्पेस बनाई जाती है कि विसर्जन वहाँ किया जाए. तो शायद एक रोल आप जो प्ले कर सकते हैं वो ये है कि आप खुद भी अगर धार्मिक विचार आपके हैं और आप विसर्जन करते हैं तो आप स्वयं भी अगर करें तो डेजिग्नेटेड प्लेस में करें, और अगर नहीं करते तो अपने आसपास के लोगों को ये करें. रजोखरी की आपने बात की, मैं रजोखरी में काम करती हूँ, तो रजोखरी की प्रॉब्लम से मैं भली भांति परिचित हूँ. और ये जो, और आपको जान के ताज्जुब होगा कि रजोखरी के उस इलाके में करीब 3 तालाब हैं और दिल्ली के अंदर 630 तालाब, 629 तालाब ऐसे हैं जिनको दिल्ली हाई कोर्ट ने प्रोटेक्ट किया हुआ है एज वाटर बॉडीज़. अब उन तालाब में अगर हम पानी नहीं पहुंचने देंगे तो ग्राउंड वाटर रिचार्ज कैसे होगा, सबको पानी कैसे मिलेगा? तो थोड़े कंट्रीब्यूशन इस तरह से हम कर सकते हैं कि हम थोड़ा अपनी तरफ से कंट्रीब्यूट करके पानी का जो स्थान है वो तालाब पानी के लिए मंदिर है, तो उस मंदिर में उस देवता का आप स्थापना करें ताकि वो देवता फिर वापस आपको अपनी ब्लेसिंग दे सके. तो ये तो टू एंड फ्रो, थोड़ा गिव एंड टेक.
So with that, I'll have to take concluding round of questions now. Coming to the larger point, this was about Mr. Mohanty, about India, the crisis that we are dealing with and the kind of solutions we can have, the localized solutions. But the larger ambit, it's a global problem. There are several countries who are dealing with this. And the United Nations is particularly concerned that we are off track in meeting the SDG 6 target. There are governments that need to work at least 4 times on an average faster than what we have done. Of course, there have been challenges. The pandemic has just put us off track, all the goals that we set for ourselves. But what are the kind of interventions that we expect from governments, and especially in India also, to ensure that water security is something that we are serious towards and we meet the 2030 target?
There's no denial that India as a country is not cognizant of the fact that water stress is a problem and water-related issues are kind of disrupting our developmental pathways. So there is no denial on that part. So we are a very forthcoming and leapfrogging country in terms of that. Let's put numbers into perspective again. In terms of innovations, 37% of the innovations, especially from the startup ecosystem that we have, and India has a huge startup ecosystem, to be precise, and these startup ecosystems have 37% or are kind of trying to address the problem that addresses water-related issues, number one. And that's where the participation of youth, because normally these startups are being started by young people, young entrepreneurs. The second thing is, the problem is actually with understanding that solutions need to be holistic, and that solution needs to cater to the sectors. It can't be a straight cut fit, right? We have taken at least, I couldn't keep a tab of the examples that we were taking during the course of this show. We would have at least highlighted 20 odd examples, right? And all of this 20 are stories in itself. All of this 20 are case studies in itself. But this 20 solutions that we are talking of and the problems that we are talking of are scalable, implementable, and more importantly are more from a citizen-centric or participatory-centric approach that needs to be taken up. But the problem that we are trying to address, or the big elephant in the room, is about understanding the larger context of sustainable development goals. Sustainable development goal number 6, looking at it from a siloed approach is different, and looking at the 17 sustainable development goals all together talks about the convergence, and that's where the convergence actually needs to be started up. And I'm so glad that Mr. Mishra is talking about a few of the schemes that Government of India has been leapfrogging and taking forward at a pilot scale. It's all about convergence. Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Ministry of Jal Shakti, Ministry of Rural Development cannot work in silos. I'll give you an example from one of the projects that we did, ICRG. We implemented primarily to climate-proof the Manrega assets across 5 states in India. And that program provided us some huge numbers and satisfactory numbers that if the Manrega assets for traditional water management that has to be revived, even as small as ponds, restoring ponds or rejuvenating and revitalizing ponds, these kind of structures, if are made properly, with a blend of nature-based solutions integrated or embedded into it, and communities come forward in terms of solving it together, then it can save more than 50% of water. And especially in those areas where agricultural, meteorological and hydrological drought is a larger problem. And let me again reiterate that 3/4 of Indian districts are extreme event hotspots. So the big elephant is always there. We need to fight it, and we need to fight it head on. And only we can do it if we do look at it from a holistic point of view by connecting all the dots and bringing sustainability from margins to mainstream.
Okay. Dr. Mukherjee, how do we bring sustainability to mainstream? Because one, of course, is spreading awareness among the youngsters, the youth population that we have. And the second is to ensure that they participate in large numbers, because community participation is what is going to bring about massive change.
You see, first of all, it needs to develop from a primary school level. You see that awareness need to develop at a primary school level. And if they are educated about the availability of the water, rainwater harvesting as well as water quality improvement, then when they will grow up, then automatically they will be taken care of. So for example, nowadays there is no firecrackers are not being burnt in the country, because the kids, they tell us, no, it is not good. So the same way, from the grassroots level, we have to start the working. At the same time, that high level technology needed to be available in a some app based mode, in the mobile, etc. It should be an app based high level technology, so that nowadays it is available also. Remote sensing GIS technology is available in the app also. So even that those people, those farmers who do not know the sensor, who do not know about the satellite, even they can also understand that the spectral response of their leaf is deteriorating. That means moisture level is going down. So that can be propagated in such a way that the people, those who do not know about the technology, but the fruit of the technology must reach them. So that is the crux of the point. And another point I always emphasize about the involvement of the young people, youth, because they are having something. उनके अंदर जज्बा है कुछ करने का और वो करेंगे. But they need some incentive.
Certainly, some kind of incentive and some kind of optimism. Mr. Mishra, optimism is something that can, change the entire story. And it's something that we've witnessed in the case of Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. So when the Prime Minister led by example, the country just followed. Now we're in that stage wherein accountability is on the youngsters. We want them to bring about that kind of change. The leadership is just showing them the way. Now, the question is about the Sustainable Development Goals. When we see, despite the ambitious goals that we set for ourselves, when we see that it's in sight, we work towards achieving it. So, what is the status of the Sustainable Development Goal, particularly SDG 6, if I may talk about?
As far as SDG 6 is concerned, this is for clean water and sanitation. Yes. As you know, that sanitation we have already achieved. And for the clean water, we are going to achieve it by 2024. As I told you, 53% of the population has been provided the piped water supply. We have got some 2,200 labs all across the country where we can test the quality of the water which is being provided. So as far as this SDG part is concerned, I don't feel that we are going to achieve it by 2024, may not be by 2030, much earlier than that. And sustainable development part, you see, as such, sustainable as such. That's what I told you, village water concept. And to go as per the agroclimatic zone, the farming. See, we should not go for sugarcane in western UP and the Punjab and Haryana for the paddy. So that part is sustainable. So millet and all these things should be the sustainable part. I'll give you one international example. The China that produces, that is called the factory of the world. So produces the much more higher number of the industrial output. They have got a quite good in terms of the service sector, and they are quite good. They are feeding. Their population is much more bigger than us. Maybe we might have exceeded a little bit few months back only. So their consumption of water is 680 billion cubic meter, and our consumption of water as on date is 700 billion cubic meter. That definitely shows that we can consume at least 680, and whatever water is available to us, somewhere some irrational is there, and we need to be sustainable. We need to be very conservative. We must not be single user of water, and we should also pay the prices for which the services which we are using.
Okay,
So
I'll take
that
one
all
last
is
question
needed.
from you, Jyoti ji. Water insecurity has a lot of burden on women, particularly globally. How do you see water security in the times to come, at least bridge that divide?
Oh, absolutely. The burden of sourcing water lies with the woman of the house. So when we make water, I have seen it with my own eyes in the work that I do in villages. When a tap enters a person's house, then the first beneficiary is the woman. Or in a slum, when a tap enters the slum, she doesn't have to get water from the tanker that we were talking about. Education of girls gets so badly affected by not having water. And sanitation, there are some girls here in the audience, and they'd be shocked to know that almost, at least that was a study that we did, that almost about 82% of women in a slum had over a 1 year period, had some kind of a reproductive tract problem. And 92% of those problems were only because of poor hygiene. So yes, the first beneficiary of water and sanitation would be women. And so yes, maybe that's one of the reasons that I work for it.
Absolutely. So I think with that, I'll have to wind up the program. Time allows me to take up only that much on this special edition of the program on Sansad TV. With that, I would like to thank all my guests for joining me on the program today, and to all the members in the audience for sharing your thoughts also and asking questions to the panelists as well. So that's it from us, viewers. Thank you very much for your time as well. Take care and keep watching Sansad TV.